for you to be told by doctors that, oh, maybe this isn't possible for you, or this shouldn't be the place for you, maybe. It sounds like you kind of used it almost as motivation.
I try and flip it and say it's just proving to myself I was right, that I could do it. People like to sometimes label it as a disadvantage, but I think if anything it's an advantage. You never really want to go after something if it's not for yourself.
Francesca, thanks so much for joining us. This series is all about talking to women who are part of the past, the present and the future of the Billie Jean King Cup. So it's a pleasure to have you part of it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we love kind of starting with talking with our guests about is about the women that have inspired them, because this competition has had so many inspiring players come through the ranks. And yeah, who are the women who have inspired you on or off the court?
It's a good question. I mean, it's very cliche, but I would say my mum is one of them, just because she's in an industry that's always been very male dominant and is renowned at what she does. So I think that character building often has come from her. I'd also say my doctor, similar situation. Like her name's Jo. She's very direct, knows what she wants, always goes after it, and professional at what she does. And I've always looked up to her. And then I think when it comes to kind of big figures, I mean, again, I don't like to give cliche answers, but Serena was a huge reason as to why I wanted to also be a sort of kingpin, so to speak, which is ironic to say kingpin, but in the sport with what I do, because I feel like she was, she was the first black woman to truly push forward in a sport and in an industry that was obviously very male dominant as well, and women's sport is obviously, I think, growing significantly as her being a huge contributing factor to that. So some cliche answers. I think for me, I never truly have gone, okay, this is the poster person in my home. I'm always very inquisitive. I like to ask a lot of questions to a lot of people. So whenever I've met anyone remotely successful, I always want to know more and try and learn. So
yeah, and that's in tennis and outside of tennis, I guess, as well, because I know you've got lots of interests outside of tennis beyond the court.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the Queen is a huge inspiration for me, and I the way that she handled this, Her Majesty handled the country was, I don't think will ever be repeated. So for me, the Queen was a massive loss, and someone for us to always look back with a huge amount of gratitude to, because I think we learned a lot from her.
Absolutely. I want to talk about your beginnings in tennis. You grew up in Yorkshire. That's where you kind of had your introduction to tennis. But then quite quickly, when you were about 9 or 10, moved to Barcelona to an academy. That's a huge move for such a young person. I actually think I saw on the WTA website, it says your favourite food is either a paella or a Sunday roast. I felt like that summed up that blended kind of experience of tennis as well for you. What would you say about how growing up in Barcelona for a long time influenced your tennis life?
Yeah, to be fair, that WTA profile probably needs updating now. But yes, Sunday roast would be it. I think I've moved on from paella, but I would say a Spanish omelette is a big thing now. But I think it's played a huge part. The values of the Spanish people and culture are very different. Here we're structured, we're rigid, we're polite in a different way. They're very much go with the flow, more elastic and flexible. I would say that for me, the humility is a big thing, and well, I'd like to call myself hardworking, but I'd say that's how people would identify with me. I think a lot of that has come from off the back of the Spanish culture in tennis especially, and obviously the ability to be bilingual and exposed to, I guess that sort of, you could describe it as hardship, but I think at that age it's actually just character development in terms of having to learn new language and meet new people and be open-minded to a new culture. I think all of that has contributed to the way that I think about tennis and about my life.
Yeah, I mean, character building to yeah, to move as a young child, to be independent in that way, I guess, from a young age. What are your kind of early memories of being on a clay court most of the time as well in Spain, and adapting to that experience of yeah, being around completely new people, especially on the tennis court as well?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned independence. I had an argument with my mum yesterday about being too independent. So, yeah, I think it was a huge thing for me to be given that sort of freedom by my parents. There's a big responsibility, you know, because that can go one of two ways. But I feel like the exposure out there has really allowed me to develop my game in a rounded way as well. You know, like the clay, I think is very underrated for juniors. I think it's vital to learn how to play in a clay court, build a point. It exposes people's weaknesses for sure, which is why I think for me on a clay court it's enjoyable to play the game, because you have to think more. You have more time to think in it. I think sometimes on these fast hard courts, it can depend much more on the day than it can on a clay court, where you've got to play the pieces of the game better. So I think it's ensured that my way of thinking of the game is tactical, and it's always strategic, coming from different angles and trying new things, not just hitting a tennis ball to the other side of the court and hoping the court does the job for me.
And I mean, another player hugely influential in British tennis, Andy Murray, did similar, moving abroad, moving to Spain to develop his tennis life. Was that a source of inspiration to you at all, the fact that he had done that and had been so successful in doing that as well?
I don't like calling Andy inspirational. No, joking. Of course, it was a factor. I was very aware of what he did, or well, I think my parents at the time were aware that that's what he did, and the benefits and, you know, the rewards that he reaped from that. So I think it played a part. But for my parents at the time, the decision making was much more based on somewhere that, again, character development. That was the biggest thing for my parents. You know, with the sort of USPs I had, they were fundamental on making sure that I had experiences that would continue to build that sort of resilience.
Yeah. And another part of your story is the fact that you were born with a rare genetic condition called EED. I wonder, can you share a bit more about what EED is and how that impacted your early tennis life, getting into tennis as well for the first time when you were a child?
Yeah, so I mean, EED there's a lot of effects, but for me specifically, that's the 4 fingers in both hands and 3 toes on my right, 4 on my left. I was born with a cleft palate, which is common, and it can affect teeth, it can affect hair, pigmentation. So there's a lot of areas that can be affected, but I feel like I always say, people like to sometimes label it as a disadvantage, but firstly, I've never been a fan of labels, and secondly, I think if anything, it's an advantage. That, again, character building, I keep referring to it. I believe that that's what's got me to the place I am today. I'll take the hits, and I'll try my absolute best to use them to my advantage, turn it around and see it from a different perspective, or I'll embrace them. They'll hurt, or you know, like anyone, you have your moments of reflection, but then I ensure that I turn it around to build and reflect on. So I feel that, you know, it's vital. When I mentioned previously about being a kingpin, it's just vital to ensure that children at the age that I was at the time, where, you know, there was conversations about me not being able to do much at all in sport. I feel like children at that age need to know that, look, put your head to it. You can get what you want out of your life and out of your professional career.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned there, like, kind of being told maybe there were limits on what you could achieve. That, I mean, any young person going into tennis, the odds are stacked against you becoming a professional tennis player, really. But for you to be told by doctors that, oh, maybe this isn't possible for you, or this shouldn't be the place for you, maybe, it sounds like you kind of used it almost as motivation, or maybe you were encouraged to use that as motivation to maybe prove people wrong. Would you characterize it as that?
Yeah, I mean, the older I get, the less I believe proving people wrong is the right way to put it. But if you would have asked me at that age, I 100% would have said I want to prove them wrong. I try and flip it and say it's just proving to myself I was right, that I could do it. And I think the same goes for anyone really. You never really want to go after something if it's not for yourself. If you're doing it for other people, then there's always a sense of more pressure and a sort of malice in that situation. And that's not what I'm looking for at this point. You know, I'm satisfied with what I've achieved so far, but I want a lot more, and so I hope that this last year, especially being the more elite side of the game, can be a good stepping stone for me and something that people can look at as, okay, you know, I've made it to the elite side of the game and I'm competing where I need to compete. But now again, it's seeing if I can continue to make strides forward.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the last year, 2025, has been somewhat of a breakthrough for you in so many ways. You reached huge milestones, winning 4 titles. You've also broken into the top 100 for the first time. I think you've halved your ranking from this time last year. I just wonder for you, has it felt like an arrival of sorts? Because it felt like a long time coming, I think, from conversations that maybe we've had before.
Yeah.
And yeah, how did it feel like for you?
I'm not sure I've processed it yet. So I do go on holiday today, and I'm hoping to use this period for a sort of process of reflection and then planning. I do think I've always had the ability to be at this level and higher. But as we know, keeping myself healthy and available to play a full season, it's the first time I've achieved a full season, and even so played less than the average player on the tour. And so we still have to keep giving myself the opportunity to continuously play throughout a season. We've put a lot into it, not just in the last 12 months or the last 2 years. My physio and I, you know, he's been working for me for 4 years now, and I think it's really been from the moment that I decided I needed a full-time physio and to set up a really strong team structure. I think it's been building slowly since then, and I say slowly because I'm an extremely impatient person, and it has felt like a very long time. The main thing for me now is trying to maintain this and then also build on what I managed to sort of bring together from a tennis perspective, but more so from a physical perspective.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the physical there. The last 2.5 years have been really challenging for you. Kind of before this season, I guess you had a lot of injuries, illness as well. I just wonder, does that make it all more sweet, I guess, to come through this season and be like, wow, okay, it's possible, I did it, and we did it as a team, I guess.
I think I'm always glass half empty, so I'm working on it, and my team are working on it with me. But yes, that should be the way that I should see it, 100%. And I have moments where I'm like snapping myself out of, yeah, but this needs to be better, or I missed that opportunity, or that's just how I always think, because I'm a perfectionist and I don't like to get things wrong. But I think that's what I'm learning. I'm not getting it wrong, I'm learning, and I'm still trying to process that with myself. But of course, you know, there's a lot of positives to take. There are a lot of firsts this year, and I think now it's, you know, in those moments my expectations might have been higher, and I might have been harsh on myself. But I think hopefully taking those experiences into next year, I can tweak a few things and understand what will take me to the next level.
Yeah, and there's lots of opportunities that come from being top 100, which a lot of players talk about, the kind of doors it opens, the automatic entry you get for things like the Grand Slams and things like that. I know you're about to take a break, but looking ahead to next season, 2026, how excited are you for that opportunity for it maybe not to feel as much of a grind to get those opportunities, for you to be able to kind of be there and see what you can do in those environments?
If I'm honest, the way that I see every year is that you start from zero. So I'm not taking anything for granted. I'm not expecting to be in the main draw of every slam right now, because I have to prove myself week in, week out again next year, as does every single player in that top 100. So of course I can look forward to the main draw of Australia, and of course I can be confident that I belong there. But we start from zero, and I think, you know, for me, it would be really enjoyable to be in the main draws of the Masters events, especially that, you know, these 2-week ones that give bigger opportunities now with the bigger draws. So that'll be the next step for me. But yeah, we start from zero.
Yeah, clearly so driven. I mean, one of the other highlights from this year, I guess, was being nominated for the Billie Jean King Cup with the British team. You were in Shenzhen for the finals with the team. What is it like to be part of that setup, to spend time with Katie Bolter, Emma Raducanu, Sonny Kartal as well? Because it seems like you all kind of push each other and drive each other to be better. That's the impression I get from speaking to them too.
Yeah, well, obviously Emma and I are very close friends, and Bolts and I have always had a close relationship, I would say, in the sense that, you know, we don't see each other every day, we don't speak every day, but there's a sense of respect between us. And you know, I like to remind her she's quite a bit older than me, so I always appreciate conversations that I have with Bolts. She's a very grounded person, so I'm lucky to have the two different dynamics that I have with the two of them who have been, you know, high ranked. So I do believe that British tennis is in a place where we do push each other, but I also don't sort of pigeonhole myself to British tennis. I think very much that there's bigger and better benchmarks to be having as well. I feel like for us, you know, Billie Jean King Cup is such a special week in the calendar, and I wish there were more team events. I think it's a nice escape for the players, and I personally, you know, I try and bounce around those weeks. I enjoy being the playful one, and bringing that sense of I think fun, like to the week. And you know, it's an easy word to use, but it's definitely vital that we have that exposure to those environments throughout the year. And it was an enjoyable experience for me, and I'm always, wherever I possibly can, going to try and take the opportunity and snap it out of their hands to be in that environment.
Yeah, you are the life and soul. I think that was clear to see. I just wonder also, being in a team, you mentioned the team environment, it's so unique to the competition, the Billie Jean King Cup and the Davis Cup on the men's side. Do you feel like it brings a different side out to you? Do you feel like it offers learning opportunities that maybe you don't get to have when you're on your own kind of mission each week on tour?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, I'm very inquisitive, and I'm always trying to learn. So I enjoy observing the other players in the team. You know, if they ever hear this, then they'll probably think that's a bit weird. But I enjoy observing how everyone goes about things, because there's no right formula, and everyone builds their own formula throughout their career. And I think for me, it's interesting to step into that environment and see what works for other people, and if there is anything I can take from it, or you know, also what people don't do well, and then you can pat yourself on the back saying, okay, I actually do that well, and give myself more credit for that. So I think that's the first thing. And then I would say that also for us in that scenario, you have the opportunity to I think just learn a little bit more about each other, and you know, the way that tennis is set up is it can often be hostile, the players' lounges and the player restaurants, and so that is taken out of the equation for that situation, or it should be, at least if you're doing things well within the team. So I always try and ensure that there's no sense of hostility for anyone on the team, and we all feel like we can just sit and have a laugh when we need to.
I know you've been so busy on the court, but I wonder, do you have one highlight from your off-court life in the last year, being on tour? Any kind of highlights, particular places that you went that you were like, okay, wow, this is an amazing life we get to lead, I guess, as tennis players?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of those moments where you take a step back and you try and ensure that there is that sense of gratitude. Again, because I'm sort of a bulldozer, just plow on with what I need to plow on with. I'm not good at it, but I do try. And look, I'm very lucky to have the team that I have. We have a great understanding of where the personal and professional line is, and we get the balance right. And we do really share some great moments off the court. I'd say this year in particular, we spent 3 weeks in Mexico, and we had a week in between events, and I was with Adam and Mario, two of my team members, and we had a fantastic time together, and we created a taco tally of who could eat the most tacos in the week. And it is those small moments with the people that ultimately you choose to surround yourself with that I think are really important to stay sane during these tough and challenging encounters.
We've got a taco tally sounds.
Taco tally.
It sounds amazing.
Just clarity, I did win. I ate the most.
Love that. Just finally, one of the most important figures in tennis, but also part of this competition, is Billie Jean King herself. The tournament holds her name. I wonder, I don't know if you've got to spend time with her when you were in Shenzhen, for example, but what do you take from her story? She really shook up the tennis world in her career as a player and in the years since. And yeah, what kind of inspiration do you take from her story?
Unfortunately, I didn't really run into her in Shenzhen. I know a couple of the players did, but it feels like my schedule didn't align. Maybe once she saw me wearing the British feathers and the sunglasses, she did her very best to avoid me in the hallways, as would I have done, to be honest. But yeah, I just remember the one time that I had the opportunity to be on a video call with her, and it was for the juniors up and coming, transitioning into the WTA tour. And one thing that she said to us was just make your strength stronger and tolerate your weaknesses, and that's just stuck with me.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a great way to end, but thanks so much, Fran.
Yeah.
It's been a joy to talk to you.
Thank you very much for having me.